Hello, welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Paz. With me today is a very special guest. He's a former WCW Cruiserweight Champion, WCW Television Champion. He is the Superior One, the Mighty DI, Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilberti. Glenn, welcome to two-man power trip. How you doing?
I got to call you out real quick here.
Yes.
Why do you have like a higher level voice when you're doing this as opposed to like when you're talking regular?
Conan said it too. You gotta do the voice.
He caught it too. It's like, yeah, because you're like this.
No, he said it about himself. No, he said it about himself. Yeah, when you do the intro, like a Mad Dog Russo, you gotta.
Let me be honest with you though.
Yes,
your regular voice sounds a lot more masculine than your voice you're trying to put on here to to do the thing. So
the fake radio intro.
The fake radio intro. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So just you could talk regular. So
all right. I will. That's just
there. You can see how your the bass became like the bass just came back in your voice when I told you to do that. So that's funny.
Russo hates it too, by the way.
He does.
Another reason.
Russo, when I do his show, he maybe because he thinks I talk too much, but he spikes his volume up like way higher than everybody else on the show. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the way he tries to silence me. So.
I notice when I'm listening to, I got to in my car. I got to put it a little louder when I'm listening to you, and then when I listen to him, I try to turn it a little bit down because he gets a little too.
Exactly, that's by design.
When you and Russo first met, was that WCW? I guess would be the first time, or did you?
Yeah, WCW, and we had I was just one of the talents backstage that was working with them previously, but we kind of hit it off when we sat next to each other on a plane on a 2-hour plane ride one time. And just picked each other's brains and stuff and everything and all that. That's when we kind of bonded.
Like the New York kind of thing, you guys.
No, just the wrestling philosophy. Same thing. We were just we had the same basic philosophy. So, and we just kind of hit it off like that.
Did you think he'd work well in WCW?
We hoped, but right from the get-go, you could see that it was it was kind of a very strange dynamic, right? Because the guys on top were kind of not really paying attention to what was going on, right? Because the WWE, when they there was a period of time when both of us were doing great business, right?
Yep.
And there was a during that whole, remember when The Last Dance was on? The Rodman stuff.
Yep.
And you go back and you look at that, I'd forgotten because we were so hot. I'd forgotten that Rodman skipped practice during the NBA Finals to come to Nitro, right? And we were so hot then, right? But they were at coming into the home. It was like a horse race, you come around the stretch, you go into the turn. They were closing fast because they were doing some really good TV at the time with what you call it, Mankind, Austin, and Taker, and Kane. They were doing really good TV. It was the first blood match with Kane. Where it's just they were just doing really good TV, right?
The Hell in a Cell.
Yep. Yeah, and at the shows, right, the Hell in a Cell, Mick and stuff right now, they're just a lot of crazy stuff, and they were doing some very good counter programming, but we were still hot. Right. But, we were in the process of becoming stale. And at the shows, backstage, if we were in a locker room or something and there was a TV on, me and Conan, we were watching Raw. Well, the top guys weren't doing that. So we kind of could see what was, where this was trending. Right. And the top guys were always, they were, most of those guys are not fans of the business like the mid-card guys were. They're not watching, they're not tape trading, they're not watching the shows. They're just they're getting paid mega money and trying to keep their spots, right? So we kind of saw the type of TV that Vince was writing there. So when we had heard that he was coming in, it was oh, well, this is the guy that's been writing all that great TV. He's coming in. The mid-card guys were ecstatic. Hey, here comes Vincent. And wow, we were now the mid-card guys are going to start getting pushed and everything. Well, the top guys were just they were complete outsiders to them. So it was that was kind of like the dynamic. They were very they didn't have their typical guys in the booking positions that would help them keep their spots and stuff. And they had completely new guys coming in that had no agenda with them, no favoritism, no nothing, right?
Right.
So they were kind of like, naturally speaking, that they were kind of apprehensive about Vince and Ed coming in. When the rest of the crew was like, "Oh, cool, this is good for us." That was the attitude. I don't care what anybody says in retrospect, everything, but I'm telling you right now because I was very involved in that because I was one of the guys that was watching Raw, like with Cohen was and just this new could see what was going on. We could see the trends.
Even me and my buddies as fans, we tried to watch as much WCW. Obviously, we'd watch both, but all of a sudden we started going to all like the WWF shows again.
Yeah,
Like we had been going, but we were like obsessed with going and being at SummerSlam '98, and like they were on a roll there towards
yeah,
the end, middle of '98, and then all towards the end.
yeah.
And you guys were on like kind of a little bit of a tailspin, a little bit.
Right. Tailspin is the key word. Just speak tailspin because it's just you can't. We were like perfect analogy for WCW. We were Andrew Dice Clay. We were super hot when the poems and stuff and everything came out.
Yep.
But then you go a year, it's like, Jesus, guys been telling the same poems for a year. It's like so. It's kind of like that's the way that's what our business would happen. It just got flat. The top guys kept wanting to work with each other. And because like we were doing 2 and 3 hour shows over the course of time, people got sick of watching these guys work each other. They wanted to see the integration of the younger talent, and they just wouldn't do it. So Vince came in and said, "Hey, this is what we need to do." So of course he got blowback from the top guys because they don't want to work with these guys are making $1.5 million a year. You don't want to work with the guy making 300,000 to try to elevate the guy making 300,000 because the guy making 300,000 gets elevated and he beats me. That guy's contract's coming up is worth 750,000. My contract's coming up is like I might not get signed or I'm going to get a pay cut. Because we're paying these other young guys like more. We need to pay these young guys more money because they're all getting over. And if it's just a basic simplistic math formula, if you look at it, and it's not. You can't knock the top guys for doing business like that. If this is a business and you're concerned about your money, it's just they want to keep their spots. They want to keep their money. We wanted a piece of the pie. We didn't think that the disparity in talent between the top guys and us was millions of dollars of worth. You know what I'm saying? It's like because
Yep.
we were getting pretty good. So a lot of us were getting really good pops out there. Good heat and stuff. They're good reactions, just as good as some of the top guys. Some nights, and we're going like, why is this guy making $2 million more than me? And that's every. We could call it the wrestling bubble, but I'm sure every business and job is like that. The competition for advancement and stuff and everything, and just and the people that not wanting to give up their spots. So that was the dynamic.
Randomly, just to throw this out there, Andrew Dice Clay was playing an ice rink down the street from me last week. I don't know.
Really?
Idea. I was like, "What? An ice rink?" I was like, "That's not a comedy venue." But I read the thing. I was like, "Oh my god, Andrew Dice Clay!" I was like, "That is." I don't know. The mighty have fallen there for
Right.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Right.
Sullivan
he didn't really. I mean, he's just kind of. It's still funny how he's kind of hung around.
Yeah.
Like all these years, crazy, right?
Yep. Sullivan mentioned to me that a lot of times they would get like pushback, like, okay, why is Hogan wrestling this guy? He's this $1 million wrestler. Why is he wrestling, Jarrett? Jarrett's only making 450. Like is that true? Like they'd get kind of blowback sometimes from like up top as well. People saying like, why is this guy working with this guy?
No clue. I have no idea what the top guys were doing or what they were thinking or what their motivations were and stuff. We just didn't know. We didn't know like office and stuff. Everything. All we knew was Brad Siegel, and he would come and talk to us every once in a while and just lie through his teeth, to us like in meetings and stuff. Everything, and that was all we really knew of the guy. We didn't. I'm sure that's what was happening. That's why they went out of business. They were looking at the books. They were looking at the numbers. It's like, well, it's not. This isn't worth anymore. But the executives never liked wrestling anyway.
Right.
It's like if like there's no way if you would have known 20 years later you could be doing a 0.3 rating and still making money, like they would have never gotten rid of it.
Yep.
But nobody could look forward to that. Look that far ahead.
Did you know that Brad Siegel's college roommate Stu Snyder was a part of WWE for like a small time period when WWE bought WCW? You ever think about like that's kind of like a odd coincidence?
It wasn't an odd coincidence. We thought, bro, the fact that it got sold for pennies on the dollar just had to be somebody on the other side making the money under the table on this. It's ridiculous. It got woefully undersold. You know what it sold for two? What was the price? The final
4 million,
case?
I think. The
Let's
final was 4 million.
think about that. Four
Hogan said he
million.
could have bought it like 5 times over if he
No,
knew that that
you
was the
could
price.
like not even that. It's like for 4 million. Like think about that kind of money these days. Like an internet poker player could buy the company. You know, for like that.
Yeah,
I mean, like just as exposed like that. That's like nothing. You know, and like now, like you see these like the UFC. Perfect example. In your lifetime, and you're a wrestling fan, right? What
yep,
impact has the programming of WCW had on your life over a period of back then? Everything. How important was it to you? How it was massive numbers on ratings, and like how important has the UFC been to people, right?
right.
UFC is huge. WCW is huge. WCW sold for 4 million. UFC sold for 4 billion. So it's just and you just look at those numbers. You go like, well, what happened here? You know. So it's just all shady shit that nobody know. That we'll never know about. We don't know about the phone calls, the private conversations, the emails, everything because there's never like there's never a trial brought up or it was investigated. It's like we don't know what happened. We don't know why it was sold so much, but obviously, I would be willing to bet money that if there's and probably text messages, emails, something. There's a history of some corrupt goings on that took place during that process, and I would bet my life savings on that.
That guy Jamie Kellner, if you really analyze it, may be the worst executive of all time. He got $65 million offer from Bischoff and Fusion Media, but decided to take a $4 million offer. If that was anybody else in any sort of business, he would have been fired 10 times over. You know what I mean?
It's
He would never
unbelievable,
got
right?
another job.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that it's crazy. I mean, there's no you can like. I don't know if you can even sue or anything or whatever, but like if you just investigated that, it just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah.
And Brad Siegel won't do any on the record interviews either. I think he's afraid of getting some of those. Even 20 years later, I think he just doesn't
Oh,
want
he's
to
full of
answer those
shit.
questions.
He's full of shit. You know, guy's full of shit. That's why he won't do any. I mean, obviously, he won't do any. He's either not interested or he's full of shit. And I would suggest at this day and age, if somebody asks you to interview, like there's so much history and that so much been written, so much, you'd want to go on the record and get your story straight. He didn't even want to.
Yep.
So that tells you all you really need to know, right?
Kind of strange. I mean, it's 20 years later. You would think who gives a shit or whatever, but for some reason he still doesn't want to do it. I don't know about that guy Stu Snyder. I don't think he'll talk about the controversy, but I don't know if he's hiding or
Right.
refusing interviews or anything like that.
Hmm.
With you and WCW, it's funny because Sullivan always mentions it too. One of the best guys in the card. Why do you think you kind of get the bad rap? Like, oh, disco, even from the trolls on the internet. Why do you think you get like a bad rap sometimes? Like, oh, he's just even from Cody Rhodes. Oh, he's just Disco Inferno. Why is that? When the booker and the wrestlers in the company are kind of and Jericho praises you in the back.
Because they never worked with me, and they don't know me personally. I'm a very heelish personality on Twitter and very antagonistic to the fans and often some of the wrestlers in the business, right?
Yep.
But when I'm talking about this stuff, it's kind of like I'm kind of ribbing on the square. I know what gets attention. Like I know what to say to get attention. I'll cross the line and say some things to get attention. Sometimes I mostly believe in something, but I like to push the envelope. You know what I'm saying? But anybody that knows me personally, I'm the funny guy in the locker room, the life of the party, the jokester guy. I'm not like this guy that like thinks that like he's hating, he hates on women's rights. I'm not like that. Like if you know me personally and sees that everybody would tell me. You hear all these guys. I'm well liked. I mean, who's going to tell you? Like, how many people that know me that worked with me say, "Yeah, Disco, he was a jackass. He was like, what a tool, what a is anybody going to? Who has said that? Nobody. The only criticism I've gotten are from people that have never worked with me. Anybody that's worked with me knew that when I was in WCW and when I got put on the booking committee, okay, I went to bat for the guys that were not getting pushed. Because I said, I'm in the locker with these guys. I know this guy can do this. I know this talent. Ernest Miller, give him the mic. I know he can talk. And I give Jericho ideas. Bro, I was constantly trying to help others to my detriment. I was never selfish about myself. I was always like trying to help other guys, and I was just the guy that would, okay, I'll do what you're told as an employee. Do what they say. Do go out there. You're doing a job in 4 minutes. Just go out. Whatever. I was that type of guy. So like basically the criticism of me, and that's why I have thick skin. It's never bothered me because if you know the truth, then it doesn't. The criticism should never bother you because you just know, well, these people are just misinformed. But if you're not confident about your positions, that's when the criticism bothers you, because now people are kind of exposing you for taking a position that you don't believe in. And I believe in every position I take. But the way I present it sometimes may be a little off color and stuff. Everything may ruffle people's feathers, but ultimately, anybody that meets me or knows me stuff, bro, all these guys that have trained with me and stuff, they'll repeat the same thing. Disco's a great guy. He's he's like he's helpful. He's just but like the persona that the social media mob and this echo chamber has of me, it doesn't bother me. I like saying like I'm it's I have a very elitist attitude towards the fans. Okay, because I know when I was a fan, okay, I was an educated fan because I used to watch 13 to 14 hours of wrestling every single week. I had we had the 7-hour wrestling block on WC on it was called what the hell was it called? Joe Pedicino had the show on Channel 36 in Atlanta from 8 to 3 o'clock in the morning, wrestling from 7 different regions of the country. I'd watch all those, tape them on the DV, on the VCR. You had Tuesday Night Titans. You had the WWE show that was on WOR. Once a month, you'd have USA Network would have the show from the Garden. They would show the wrestling from the Garden every Sunday, and I had NWA Georgia Championship Wrestling at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. It's like 13 hours of wrestling. I watched that for like 6, 7, 8 years in a row religiously, and educated myself on that. Like I was a fan of wrestling, right? But I was still a fan. I had more knowledge than most people because I'd been watching more and I tried to figure out something. But until I went to train to wrestle, I was a mark. Because I had I'd see how they would talk in the ring. I didn't know how they did and everything. But until I got educated to the business, you don't realize how little the marks know about the business. And it's just true. I can't reiterate to people like that the fans that think they know as much as I do or think they know more than I do. When you have the expert level of knowledge and you gain that, we call them marks because that's the word we use and everything, but that is the dichotomy. It's like these are just fans, and even the dirt sheet guys, they're still just fans. Okay, they're not. I could have written a newsletter back in 1987, because I was watching 13 hours of wrestling television. I could have been like a guy, like a dirt sheet guy and everything if I decided to pursue that. But it's like until you get in the business, your level of knowledge does not reach that point. And it's like, and I'm when fans try to argue with me and stuff, I just know this. Like, I'm not going to sit there and try to argue with Tom Brady or whether he should check down on a third down pass or throw an interception. And that's the equivalent of what these people try to argue with you with. It's like they think they know what's going on and they don't. So
it's crazy. I was talking to a current WB guy, NXT guy, and he said it off air. He didn't want to say it on there, but he said this was the best era of wrestling, like, for the wrestlers. I was like, that's debatable, but he's a current guy, so
let me tell you why that's not even close. It's ridiculous. Okay,
but he's current, so I could see why he's in his head thinking that, though.
Okay, of course they are, because he's a younger. They want to promote the. And you got the dirt sheet guys, which is the biggest, journalistic malpractice that's going today is these dirt sheet guys promoting that there's never been a better time to be a wrestling fan. And I'm like, wait a
Right.
second. As a wrestling fan today, okay, as a wrestling fan back during the best time of professional wrestling when I was in it, the mid to late 90s, if wrestling was coming to town, you could go see it and the place would be sold out and the crowd would be booing the heels and cheering the baby faces and having emotional responses to the matches, and they'd be very loud.
Yes.
Today, you cannot get that. You cannot experience the crowds, the emotion, and stuff and thing of wrestling from 20 years ago today unless you're sitting on your laptop watching it on a computer. And to try to sit there and say that there's never been a better time for a wrestling fan, that instead of going to a live show and experiencing the adrenaline, the emotion, and the noise, you have to watch it on your computer. It's like the most idiotic argument that you could possibly make. It's like, just imagine that, like, say, like, if you sit there and like told people like this has never been a time to be a never been a time to be a better time to be a football fan because there's so many fantasy football leagues you can play in. It's like, it's like, yeah, but wait a second. What if I want to go watch, what if I want to watch the Steelers versus the Cowboys, and the fans are fighting in the crowd and stuff like that, and there's a raw emotion, something, bro, it's just ridiculous. And plus two is like, if you watch wrestling today, and I was thinking about this in the car today when I was just driving around, right? I was watching, like, it was just a movie clip. It was just a YouTube clip and everything, and it was just from what movie is this from? What's the William Wallace movie? Braveheart. And it was showing a fight scene in the fields, right? And just people fighting for their lives, trying to chop and stuff, and just like they're trying to kill each other and everything, all that. And like that's like kind of like an historical reference when we look at fighting, people fighting like street fighting and everything. You look and see what's going on. It's like if you have wrestlers today try to choreograph the fight scenes from like movies like that and street fights and everything, do you know how ridiculous it would look?
Yeah.
These people would be doing flips, cartwheels, dives, stuff like literally like the integration of gymnastics and acrobatics into combat fighting, right? And it's like you're looking at this and like going like, what happened to this product? It's like these guys have street fights today, and like they'll book a street fight. And I think it's funny because, like I say, like they'll book a street fight on TV, and I'll say like that's hysterical because I know when I watch this street fight, these guys can't even throw a punch with their fists. They have to throw legal forearms. In a street fight where all rules are thrown out the window, you can just go brawl. And these guys are still like doing these forearm shots. I'm like, bro, it's like the wrestlers today don't have the basic skills or have mastered the basic skills to make it look like a fight, which is the whole premise of what wrestling and competition and making these matches are for. Two guys rising to a level to fight each other in a ring. But now it's like the thing is like like new guys are coming into an organization. You get these guys. All everybody can think about is like, oh my god, think about all these great matches, so they can rate them with the stars like critics. And I'm like, really? That's not. If this is the best time to be a wrestling fan, there's no way you're going to sell that to other people to be fans. We're going to watch two people simulate a fight, not even fight for real, and we're going to grade their performance, and that's what the process should look like to us. And I'm like, well, what so. It's like, and then you see the numbers. You can't get a lot of people engaged into watching the product based on that type of like if that's how we're going to watch it. We're going to critique the work, which is all these guys do. The dirt sheet guys do. The fans guys do. That's all they do these days. To the point that like we can't even look at like presentation of characters and stuff, everything, and like wow, this guy puts my suspension disbelief in the right place for this promos, or this guy's what a good interview, what a good backstage segment. So it's like there's the tools that wrestlers had in their box years ago to get over. It's like a lot of these guys don't even have any of the tools. And like we're talking about how talented they are and the level. I'm like, guys, if you can't throw a punch, if you can't sell, it's like you're not that talented. Because like guys that all they could do is that Jerry Lawler made an unbelievable career basically just punching and kicking.
Yeah.
But he did it so good and so realistically and believably. His skills were, that far above everybody else, and then he was over. So it's like, I don't know. It's just funny just watching that narrative delivered. There's never been a better time to be a wrestling fan. And you're talking about like, well, during the time that I want to compare you to, there's a million things you can't do that we could have done back then. Other than watch the product on your laptop. And I'm like,
Right.
really? This is a bet. Is that what you think a fan is? Sitting in his underwear on his bed with a laptop watching, Tanahashi versus Okada. Like seriously, I mean, like as opposed to like, watching The Rock and Austin in the middle of the ring, cutting promos on each other, and The Rock stuns him, and then or Austin stuns him, and then takes beer and drinks the beer. So, come on, it's like you're kidding me. The pops were way bigger back then, which is why that was the time was better to be a wrestling fan is when the pops were way bigger.
Yep. He said that the current day fans are terrible. That's like the worst where it's been, which is why he didn't want to talk about it on air. Saying the fans are terrible, but yeah,
you're using social media to promote your product now because it's generating all these income streams, and like they're making way more money. Like the WWE smart, But when you engage in that environment, it's like perfect example, right? Remember the movie The Aliens? Where it was either the first one or second one. I forget which one this was, but they walk into this like cave, and they walk in the cave, and you see all like these pods, and they're walking around, and the next thing you know is like the aliens are starting to come out of the walls. And stuff, like they're coming out of the pods, and like so that's what it's like with the trolls. It's like if you venture into that, here they come. It's like they can't help it. Trolls, Twitter, social media trolls cannot help what they do. They're psychopathic. They just want to shit on things and bury things and antagonize them. That's what they do. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, and it's funny too, because you can play the role of a troll and like, just intentionally like antagonize people. And like when you're a public figure like I am, it's like, it's so simplistic. It's so easy to do because you have like the sea of people that love to do stuff like that, troll people and stuff. So it's like, it's easy to like stay relevant,
Yep.
in this climate. But yeah, the fans are atrocious today. They, the cheers, the clap, because they don't believe that they never believe what's going on is real. Okay, there was a percentage of people that thought it was real, and that would kind of like interject with the rest of the people that decide, okay, we're going to pretend it's real, right? They can't even pretend it's real right now. That's the problem with the suspension of disbelief. You can't pretend it's real because there's no emotional response. You're not hating one guy. You're not really liking one guy. You're just liking the performances of the performers, which is the way you're watching it. It's kind of it's just a weird way to watch for me. I just can't get into it. That this is awesome chance of fight forever and you deserve. I'm not. Those are corny things that I would have heard as a fan. But plus, too, this is funny. I was thinking about this the other day. It's hysterical watching like a lot of the work on TV, and guys are like missing spots, screwing up spots, botching finishes, everything. And then like you look at the rating of the match, 3 3/4 stars, 4 1/4 stars. So, bro, if we back in the day, if you went out there and you killed it, but if you screwed up one spot in a match, you came back through the curtain and that was all you thought about. You were pissed that you screwed up a spot. And it's like you didn't care there was over. You didn't care. It's like these days, it's like an apology culture. It's like, oh, it didn't matter. We're all who cares? The crowd was over, and like you rate the matches, give them high grades, and everything. But a lot of these guys, like you watch them work, and it's like they look green. I mean, they look amateurish, and you watch a match just like they screwed this and screwed that, and then you see it's like Meltzer gave that 4.5 stars. It's like, how is that possible? It's like you're not subtracting stars for any transgression in the match, or you're just like saying, oh, I watched it and I like them, they're my friends, and I'm going to give them a good grade. It's like it's ridiculous, and it's always what it's done is they've overvalued the performers. They've made this thing like, okay, this is the best. There's never been a better crop of talent in wrestling today. That's like these guys can't even throw a punch. It's like these guys don't even look like they know how to fight for real, like in a fist fight. Like they look like the fans look like that. Like we could beat these guys up. It's like the aura of the professional wrestler is gone, But the aura of the performer, they found a niche audience of fans that are attracted to that stuff, So that's my philosophy on it. So
yeah, a lot of those guys I can't buy into. I know Cole and Gargano may be okay or whatever in the ring. And Meltzer giving them 5 stars, but I just can't buy into them. They're too small, can't throw real punches. They're just not believable.
I like Cole's work. Cole can throw punches. Gargano, but the thing is with these guys, bro, I've seen them. You haven't watched a lot. I've watched a lot of NXT. These guys can throw punches. They just don't. And I'm like, what on earth are you guys doing? This looks stupid. You're throwing these forearms and stuff in the, you're not even selling, bro, throw punches. A good looking punch with the guy selling it good looks far more realistic than jacking a guy up on the side of the jaw and he doesn't even take a step back. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you line up like this Japanese fighting spirit spot that they do where the guys just stand there and let the other guy hit him. Bro, if you lined me up in front of a guy and gave me a free shot of the guy and I'd knock him out. But no, there's not. They're doing it. They're not selling. It's like it looks completely stupid. It's just like atrocious psychology because there's never been a fight where after 10 to 15 minutes into the fight, the guys stop and decide, hey, I'm going to let you. Let's trade blows. I'll let you hit me. You come on. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Cole, though, he's got to get some muscle mass. His arms are so skinny.
He's undersized.
Elbow pads. His knee pads always. He's so skinny.
He'd look better if this was the our era and he could do steroids. Yep. And I don't even know what their wellness policy is. The guy's probably old enough. He should be getting a growth hormone or testosterone, which is, I think some of that's legal. I don't know if they can do that. Bobby Lashley obviously is doing something, I mean, but legal, probably legal because they're testing for the illegal stuff, right? I don't even, bro, maybe because of this generation, I don't think these guys even try to do things to help enhance their physiques. I don't know if they're drinking protein shakes or taking supplements or something because a lot of them just don't, a lot of these guys just don't look like they work out. It's not that they work out. They just don't look like they work out hard. Right. That's what the typical wrestler looks like today. Very few of them look like they work out hard. They're just they're just kind of there, Your
boy Cross is a monster, but all the other guys are pretty small.
Well, there's a lot of guys that are built, but that know the value of like looking bigger than everybody, which is still like a thing that fans see.
Yep.
They look at you and they see the big guy versus a small guy. Well, I'm picking the big guy. Why wouldn't I? Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just different.
You had one of the better punches up there. I always hear people say, like you, Jarrett, Lawler, Scott Hall, The Rock, like amongst the best punches. Where do you learn to punch? Like, do you just teach yourself, or you watch like maybe Lawler or something?
I learned how to punch before I ever got in the business, just from watching it. I just knew me and my friends would fight, and I just knew how to throw it and pull it, and I knew how to work it. It's not that hard to do. I teach classes, in Vegas when I do it. I just need you for an hour or two, and I'll teach somebody how to throw a good punch. I went one time. There was years and years and years ago. I did a seminar for like wrestling fans, and I literally had the fans come in the ring, and I taught them all how to throw a punch. And like a bunch of to this day, that class of just fans that I just brought in the ring and taught how to do punch better than half the guys in the business today. It's a great skill to have. And it's fascinating to watch these people just do not use it. Most aggravating thing to me is these guys that you're in a brawl. It isn't part of a match, and you're in the back, fighting in the back, and you're throwing forearms. It's like could you imagine if you were going to fight a guy in the streets and he's going to throw forearms, you'd kill the guy. The guy's not going to punch you. He's going to throw forearms at you. You'd beat the guy up because you would punch him. People. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So,
where did that come from? Just from the Japanese that they pretty much stole it from them?
Japanese fighting spirit spot, where they just stand there in front of each other and hit each other back and forth and trade. And these wrestlers today thought that would be something good to bring over here to the States, which is asinine because Japanese fighting spirit. If you're not Japanese, what is? if you're an American, why? How are you using Japanese fighting spirit if you're American? It's like a simple question to ask somebody,
Influenced, I guess, from watching a lot of Japanese wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, you would think, right?
Yeah, definitely. So as far as like you and Russo and the creative committee, he's the one that got you on the creative team in WCW?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, he asked me. With Eric's blessing. Eric was still kind of involved. I think Eric okayed it too.
So just flat out, it's like this guy knows what he's talking about. He should be in the committee?
I want to be in the I want to have him in the room. Yeah, yeah.
Is it a bump and pay?
Wasn't a bump and pay, but it was a bump. Yeah, sort of, because I got my rooms and my cars paid for. I
Oh,
was having
okay.
I was like the typical independent contract. I was getting my rooms and car. Yeah, I had to pay for your room and your car, but now I was getting. I was office now, so they're paying. They're paying for it, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a pain in the ass when you don't have to, when you actually have to pay for it, it's a pain in the ass
Right. Right. Exactly.
and getting stuff. So as we head for the finish, we head for the wind down here. What do you think is like going to help the business, or is it too far gone? Like, what can the business do to kind of get back to where it was? I mean, when I was going to shows talking about 80s and 90s, Hogan, the level of importance on just the show that he was on was crazy. Austin, even going to house shows, I remember like it was first of all sold out, but you just feel that in the air, something was in the air. If he was going to stun Shane McMahon or something, there was importance. There was something in the air with wrestling. You went to the show, you were excited to go to the show. What can they do to get back to that?
You need more grown men, or more grown men looking characters. You're not gonna put guys like Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy and Darby Allin and stuff. You're not gonna sell those guys to the masses. I mean, bro, it's like the most fascinating thing is that I always bring up the Variety article on our show. You've probably heard me talk about it repeatedly.
Yes. Yep.
And the data is very clear. You look at the television ratings the way they are now. You look at the television ratings the way they were. You look at the Variety article, which basically said, like, look, well, 80% of the wrestling fans that have watched wrestling do not watch anymore. It's 4/5 of the audience. And you add it up to the ratings, and it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because that's about what the difference is. And like, so it's very clear data, you know? And you look at the data and it says, wrestling's too cartoonish. The matches, we don't like them. As many people, 25% of the 80%, okay, say they don't watch anymore because of they don't like the matches. So literally half the people, if you have like a subset group of 100 people, okay, and you have the people that don't 50% of them don't watch wrestling, and 50% do. The 50% don't watch wrestling, or whatever more that is. But like, basically, if you look at the percentage, the amount of people that stop watching wrestling because they don't like the work are the same amount of people that watch wrestling today. So while we're trying to promote this style of wrestling, and we're this is just basic math, because I'm a data guy, and like, it's funny because Dave
Yep.
Meltzer says nobody punches the numbers like him, and these are the most simplistic numbers that you could you do if you have any knowledge. And I'm good at math. I've always been good at math, and to me, this math is not difficult, but it might be to like other people. Like, literally the same amount of people that that watch wrestling today, that amount of people stop watching because they don't like the work. And it's like, dude, you're talking about the work these days. Literally, it's turning off half the people. Like, half the people do not like this style, do not like this work. And it's like, so you would think, like, okay, what are we going to, well, let's try to maybe integrate some of the things that these people liked, and they just don't do it. They just stick with it. They go even farther away from the stuff that people don't like, instead of maybe going back into some. That's what I've always said. Like, if 80% of the people used to watch wrestling don't, you kind of would, a logical person would think that, like, well, maybe you guys quit doing a lot of the stuff like over the years that we used to do that you guys don't do anymore. And it's like, these to me, these are common sense calculations that you make. But the wrestling business, these, Meltzer, every time these guys screw up or something, he makes excuses. Every time they have a match, it's the greatest thing ever, regardless of how many mistakes they make or anything. And it's just like, and all these dirt sheet guys go fawning over this. It's just pathetic watching the dirt sheet guys tweet during these shows, like the worst of the marks, like the cultist type fans. Like, I was watching, oh, bro, go on Sean Ross Sapp's Twitter when AEW's on. It's funny to watch. You're like, oh my god, this guy's like, bro, are you a journalist, or are you just a 5-year, like a 9-year-old fan? Because that's what you sound like, when you're tweeting about this stuff. So I don't know. It's just I don't know. I think wrestling's just changed. I don't. As long as everybody thinks it's great, it's never going to go back, and we're going to continue every single year to bleed fans which is what happens from the year before. There's always less fans watching from the year before that. And I just would profess it is probably just going to continue if they don't start embracing some of the things that used to work and used to get the masses,
It's funny, these fans today are like anti-Hogan or for whatever reason don't like Hogan. The guy's responsible for the two biggest booms ever in wrestling. So yeah,
No,
where's
these
the
fans
next
don't
Hogan
care.
guy?
No, it's like being a social justice warrior is almost more important to them than wrestling. It's like he's a racist. He's he's this. We're gonna every transgression any wrestler in my generation had. This generation is going to amplify it and try to make it sound like that we sucked. We never made any mistake we made is canceling is I'm irrelevant if you did that. It's just absurd. And you're right. That's the fans. The fans are terrible. Like that.
And Hogan just did a signing at his beach shop a few weeks ago. It was like 200 tickets or something because they had to cut it off, and it was supposed to be for 2 hours. So it's supposed to be like short. Supposedly went 8 hours. So that means with each person he spends the amount of time. So I mean, he's great with the fans. So I just hate like that kind of like anti-Hogan stuff that these SJWs put out there. Just
well, it's anti anything WWE kind of.
But who's the next Hogan? Could it be Roman, or is there's nobody on the horizon?
Roman's no, not Hogan. Hogan's a global icon, like Hogan, who's very recognizable. Hogan was on Hogan was in Rocky 3.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's what everybody said. So I don't think if he had been in Rocky 3, he would have taken him more time to become more popular. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that he was on Rocky 3, the Rocky movies were like massive. You know what I'm saying? So like, just think about that. So. I mean, it'd be like if he was like on Mission Impossible or something today. Like any wrestler was on a guy was on Mission Impossible and came into the business, and but yeah, it's crazy to watch. I mean, I understand what what Hogan meant to the wrestling business, but it's like we're trying to whitewash that part of history. I think honestly, you got guys in this business, the guys like Meltzer that on his. Like if you were like standing right now and you were in South Dakota and looking up at Mount Rushmore, right? And you're envisioning what mountain, but it's Mount Rushmore of wrestling. It doesn't have George, doesn't have these guys on. You just anybody that's been a wrestling fan over the course of time would just look and see, Hogan, Rock, Austin, and Flair. And I honestly think that like if you visualize that and put your person like Dave Meltzer would look at that and think, Flair, Omega, Tanahashi, Okada, and Misawa. He would literally that would be what his Mount Rushmore looked like. And then you would get a bunch of other people that this is my Mount Rushmore wrestling. Have been wrestling fans in mass. 90% of them would say, "Well, who are those guys?" It's like and that's where the mindset differs between like. A guy like him and his fans, because I was bringing up Meltzer because like I'll never forget that the best way to describe him is the people that read his newsletter voted in their year-end awards that AEW Dark was a better show than SmackDown. So that's all you got to say. That's all you would have to do to try to say, well, that's the reference point we're talking about here with his followers. So they're clueless. You know what I'm saying? They're just in this echo chamber and but they're none of those people are going to have an idea to like draw more people to watch wrestling. They're actually going to have more ideas to turn more people off from wrestling, which has been happening for the past like 15 years. So, and that's all just that. To me, that's simple math. Just look at these numbers, look at what they're doing, look at and that's the way I view this. I look at these trends and I've never, bro. I'm to my horn. You listen to me. Bro, who is more accurate in prognostications in this wrestling business than I am?
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about trends, future, where things are going, who's been more accurate? Like Conan, they won't admit it sometimes.
Of course,
bro. The reason they like to hear from me is because I make a lot of predictions, and most of them come true. I'm pretty good with I'm very good with talent evaluation. It's one thing that I think I'm far more expert than most people in this business. It's like I right off the bat, I'm in the FSW training there for like 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, this Chris Bay kid's going to make it. This Kevin Cross is going to make it. And this kid's 21 years old. And this guy's been in here for a few months and stuff. And I just can tell. You can just tell.
Yep.
And it's like these guys. I look at some of these other guys that people think are great and stuff, and I just, it's a perfect example. Like everybody's fawning. Like I call like I see it. Everybody's fawning over Jungle Boy. And like, oh, my Jungle Boy, he's starting. I'm like, look at him, this guy, bro. This guy's boring. Every backstage promo he's ever done has been boring. He has no personality. He has very few facial expressions. I'm watching this like I train wrestlers. I would be working with this guy to try to help him get out of his shell. That's what I would do if I had Jungle Boy. But he's just going out there expressionless, does his dives and stuff, and everything, and plays with his hair and throws his hair back. Everybody thinks this guy's like like the next Steve Austin. And that's what the fans today, that's how they think. And I'm like, all right, I'm not seeing this. It's like, and I can tell you why I'm not seeing this and explain to you why I'm not seeing this. And you'll probably agree with me why I'm not seeing this, That's what usually happens. So
Jungle Boy doesn't show any fire either. Like that babyface fire, like that Ricky Morton.
One of the guys on who was the Jim Valley guy that does the thing with Alvarez? He said that he was he's the closest thing to Ricky Morton in the past 30 years.
Come on.
Or like his generation. I'm like, what?
No.
Like, what do you watch when you watch it? See, those are guys who've never trained to wrestle, that don't know the skills, that don't know what he's doing wrong, that don't know they just think, oh, he's small and he's like Ricky Morton because he's small and got long hair. And I'm like, okay, it's like, it's a million indie guys like this. There's a million skinny indie guys with long hair. That's like the thing these days. A skinny
but he doesn't
indie guy
do
with long hair.
The level thing where you're working from the bottom to get up. He doesn't do any of that.
These guys don't even do comebacks anymore.
Yeah.
Like a wrestling match doesn't even have heat and comebacks. It's just a collection of spots done like a mathematical equation, then it's over. Mathematical kick out, 1, 2, kick out, kick. There's no like emotional like if their matches today look like they're written out on a piece of paper, and it's a very long piece of paper, with no interjections for like emotion or selling or like we didn't even figure that in. It's like, okay, we got this move, this move, this move. It's like, well, should we be selling this move like way longer than this move? And it's like, no, we'll just we got to get all these moves in before the match, before our time is up. And that's what the matches look like. Because nothing means anything, nothing hurt. Everybody talks about the psychology of wrestling. Here's the psychology of wrestling today. Nothing hurts. That's the psychology. Because every match ends with that guy's taking 7 or 8 devastating moves that can beat him, and then all of a sudden you got to get beat by the guy's finish, which looks weaker than the 7 to 8 moves that he kicked out of before.
Yep.
And if you watch wrestling, that's what I see. From a guy that's trained people to wrestle, that's been an agent that's laid out match everything. When I look at the matches, that's what they look like. Just a big giant math equation. 1, 2, kick out, 1, 2, kick. Just do this, but no emotion, no selling, no context. We're doing a power bomb on the apron in the middle of the match, which should maybe like, okay, if the apron hurts as much as it does, it's supposed to, which it does. That's the funniest thing. Is the wrestlers know how much the apron hurts. The fans don't. The announcers have to tell you, hey, that's a hard part of the ring. But right. It's like if you're watching this as a fan, it's not that devastating because you've never really felt that part of the ring before. You're just watching like stuff, but the wrestlers can feel it. I'm like, why? When I see them doing these spots in the apron, I'm like, why? Who trained you guys? We're trained not to do the stuff on the apron because that's where the stuff hurts the most. So why are you doing the stuff on the apron where it hurts the most? That's idiotic. It is idiotic. Because when you're trained to wrestle, the whole concept is you want to keep your opponent safe and you safe and not hurt each other. And you're literally mapping out moves that are supposed to hurt you. And I'm like, it's like, think about that. It's like I would never train anybody to do that. It's like I'd be a failure as a trainer if I was training people to do stuff on the apron. I'd be an idiot. And these guys just do it all the time like it's nothing. And even some of the veteran guys do it too. Jericho did it one time. I was saying, why did you do that? He's like, he's playing it down, doesn't hurt. But then, like, it was funny too. He was playing it down because I think he knew that it was dumb of him to do that. Right. Then a few months later, he was like, I'm never doing that again. It's like, so you were lying when you talked about it. It did hurt like shit. Of course it did because, like, because it's like it's a piece of wood there. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, come on.
It is funny, the opposite. Like back in the good days, the golden days, you do stuff and you think it's getting the guy hurt, but it's really not. Now they're really getting the guy hurt, and you get no reaction from it. It's kind of a weird place to be in.
Oh,
The
Dusty Rhodes would have never. If there was somebody that worked like Dusty Rhodes in the Indies, he'd never be on TV. Never be on TV because his work isn't good. He's not doing the moves, the dives, the acrobat. Come on. What would Abdul the Butcher's role be in professional wrestling today?
Right, no bumps, just be scary. Yeah.
No, but you're not scared. They laugh, and like it's funny too, because like when they're doing a lot of blood and gore these days on AEW, and I'm like, that's
Yeah.
It's like let's not forget like the past 2 weeks of TV. 2 weeks ago you had a guy jabbing a fork in a guy's forehead, and last week you had shattering glass and it's flying into the crowd onto the fans and stuff. And you just watch this, but like when I watch them, they've done like bunkhouse matches, all bloody, and these guys are cutting themselves, and the camera's not even trying to hide it. You can see the guys cutting them, like it's so ridiculous,
horrible.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you're watching this, and I'm watching it, and bro, it just reminds me of South Park style humor, where it's gory, but it's funny gory. Like when I'm watching these guys bleed all over, like I'm watching Chris and this guy do it, I'm laughing. I'm not like emotionally invested. Like, oh my god! It's like I've watched the spots and I'm laughing out loud to myself. Watch these guys bleed and do this stuff. I go, what on earth are they doing? Why are they doing this? And it's just funny to me. It's like South Park. The Jim and Tony Khan's a South Park fan. He's said it before. It's like the violence is like South Park level violence. It's comedic violence, is what it is. It's not to be taken seriously. There's no emotion. It's not real. It's South Park.
There's a great WWE episode of South Park. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. That one's so funny, where they have like a fake John Cena and a fake Edge. Yeah. And there's like, he took our job. And they're like, oh my God, he took his job. Like, oh, just so funny. But that's probably Khan probably watched. I was like, this is awesome. Yeah.
Right.
So as far as you, what's next? What do you got on the plate? I know you got a lot of stuff going on with Russo. You've got Timeout. You've got Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco.
At The Real Disco on Twitter, and at Disco Master GG on Snapchat and Instagram. I'm working SummerSlam weekend. There's a show, a vintage wrestling clothing swap, like vintage wrestling clothes. I'm doing that. It's at Space LV. You can look it up. That's Friday from 12 to 5. Okay, I'm gonna be there on August 20th. I'm gonna be there from 12 to 1. At 1 o'clock, I'm heading over to the FSW Arena. There's a show that they're doing at FSW Arena. I think I'm doing commentary on it and everything. And the next day, I'm doing the FSW versus GCW show at noon at the FSW Arena in Vegas and everything. So I got three shows that week, and all in the afternoon. I can go to work that night, so I'm not even missing work. It was great.
Nice.
You can also catch me at Keep It 100 with Conan. Drops Thursdays on Spreaker and what do you call it? MLW Radio. Also, I do Vince's show, Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco. It drops Friday on the Russo brand on the Realm Network, and I do Timeout. What's the Russo brand? TWC.
Patreon.com.
Patreon.com. Yeah.
Russo TWC. Yep.
Yeah. Timeout. We usually talk politics, culture, sports, other things, but non-wrestling. But sometimes we'll do a deep dive into like a wrestling topic that's not really wrestling related. And also the Patreon for Conan, the show I do with Conan, Keep 100 is Conan.me, KONNAN.me. Tons of extra content, tons of fan interaction. We do roundtable reviews of AEW and stuff with fans on the show, and that drops on the podcast too. So check it out.
All right. Awesome stuff, Disco. Thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, brother.